In case you missed the previous video, I recently counted up all the money raised by over 600 tabletop RPG crowdfunding campaigns. Specifically, every Kickstarter and BackerKit RPG product that earned over $100,000 in the last 11 years. I called it 10 years in that video, but 2014 through and including 2024 is actually 11. And with this fascinating data, we looked at the overarching trend of where the TTRPG community has been throwing our money and how it shifted from general TTRPG to being dominated by 5th edition D&D to recently opening back up to a wider variety of games. But what we did not analyze, and so the question we ask today is, what actually are all those other 200 RPGs besides D&D where we've been throwing our money? And which ones got the most money? Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and we wouldn't be throwing our money at these games if they weren't fun. So obvious caveat, this Kickstarter and BackerKit data does not include sales from DriveThruRPG, Amazon, big box stores, local game stores, or proprietary websites. And that's a big one, because proprietary websites are where games like Shadowdark, Daggerheart, and even D&D 2024 are doing most of their business today. That's why traditional book sale data makes D&D 2024 look really bad, and why we keep getting thumbnails like this from friend of the channel, Professor DM. But crowdfunding earnings are still a great proxy for a game's success and popularity, because it's not just people buying the game, it's people saying, I'm supporting the very production of this game so it can be the best it can be. And yeah, I'm sure some folks may get upset when it turns out their favorite RPG isn't the second most popular, so we'll probably get some even more thorough caveats down in the comments about why this whole thing is invalid. But let's begin. 2014, the first year of our data collection, conveniently had 10 RPG crowdfunds that earned over $100,000, and I don't know about you, but I've never heard of most of them. Starting from the bottom, Time Watch, Earth Dawn, Knights, Black Agents, 13th Age. I think I have heard Sly Flourish mention that one from time to time. Shadows of Esterin, Feng Shui, Momentum, that's the system used by Modifius for a few games, so getting into more recognizable titles. Number 3, Paranoia. Number 2, the Cypher system. And number 1, World of Darkness, which from the combined earnings of 3 big titles pulled in over $1 million in 2014. And if you're not familiar, World of Darkness is the system behind Vampire the Masquerade and a few other RPGs. However, the thing we must consider going forward is that more important than a game's exact ranking in a given year, 1, 2, 3, 7, whatever, is whether or not a game continues to rank at all year after year. Because what you won't see is that about half of these 200-ish RPGs that made it into the rankings only ever appear once in our 11 years of data. Of course, that's biased against very new games, even if they had a really huge Kickstarter. Looking at you, Brando Sando. So we'll keep that in mind. 2015. The list already looks pretty different from the previous year. World of Darkness, still number 1. Momentum rose to number 2. But other familiar games appear, like Forged in the Dark, RuneQuest, and Dungeon Crawl Classics. Heck yeah, be sure to comment below how cool DCC is if you too are cool. And here it is, the game that many of us may assume to be the second most popular TTRPG based merely on the frequent and fervent recommendations from its players. Pathfinder. And what the heck, a little spoiler, Pathfinder does make these rankings many times, in large part thanks to one publisher who works with the co-creator of Pathfinder 2e to make their books for Pathfinder and D&D, and who is sponsoring this video to promote their latest masterpiece. Battlezoo Ancestries Living Legends, with 14 all-new playable ancestries for D&D and Pathfinder, and hold it right there, because they specifically went out of their way to include several bizarre player options that you really won't find anywhere else. like Swarmblood, a creature made of hundreds of other little creatures. Ew. But you have never seen the most chaotic ancestry of them all, fusions. Play as an ancestry that combines multiple characters in one, like a chimera, or two-headed giant, or even a mighty hydra. You can either share this character with other players, or control it all yourself. GM permitting, of course. Battlezoo Ancestry's Living Legends includes in-depth information about each creature's culture, society, and history. You also get hundreds of digital tokens and illustrations that work with any VTT. And today, April 1st, the publisher is giving away some free goodies. They do it every year. But be sure to check out their Kickstarter for Living Legends through the link below. Okay. Lightning round, and then we'll check out the big picture totals of which games made the most money and which ones actually ranked the most times. 2016, the most diverse year yet with 24 big titles. Folks who saw the previous Kickstarter video may remember 7th Sea at the top, being the first to make $1 million. In our data anyway. Other notable games for their earnings or appearances include Cypher System, Momentum, World of Darkness, Year Zero, the system used for many of Free League's wonderful TTRPGs, plus Savage Worlds, Pathfinder, DCC, Powered by the Apocalypse, freaking GURPS, and City of Mist. 2017, Cypher System at the top, Year Zero, Pathfinder, something called Torg Eternity, which I only discovered through this project, but it does appear a few times. More Savage Worlds, 7th Sea, Worlds Without Number popping in, Dungeon Crawl Classics yet again, World of Darkness, Traveler, and worth pointing out that System Neutral will be seen in the rankings going forward. 2018 includes Year Zero, D6, which upon closer inspection appears more like a board game, but also has character sheets, so I don't know. Torg Eternity, Cypher System, Momentum, City of Mist, DCC, just saying, pretty cool. Now 2019. Kind of a weak year. Only 16 big titles, but led by Year Zero, System Neutral, Forged in the Dark, Lancer, Pathfinder, Cypher System, and we have Old School Essentials, a very popular OSR game, making its debut in the rankings. 2020, really speeding up now. Savage Worlds, Year Zero, PBTA, World of Darkness, OSC, Worlds Without Number, Pathfinder, Shadow of the Demon Lord, which I didn't mention previously, but it was on another year. And sadly, no DCC this year. Now 2021, huge year for games, specifically with the Powered by the Apocalypse Avatar RPG totally dominating with $9 million alone. However, there are a lot of notable games emerging and recurring from this year on, so rather than continuing to list them all like a computer myself, feel free to pause and scan these lists for 2021 through 2024, and we will now jump way ahead to the total results. Again, this was about 200 games, 11 years of data, and the grand total earnings just for kicks? A whopping $160 million made by all these publishers combined. Now, I've ranked these most popular TTRPGs in order of their earnings, but we're also going to consider the number of years they ranked to get a clearer picture. And yeah, I could have tried to develop some sort of score based on each game's total earnings and number of years ranked, but I'm sure there's several good ways to approach that, so I didn't bother. But once again, this whole spreadsheet is publicly available, linked below, if you'd like to give it a shot. So as you know by now, the highest earning RPG Kickstarter of all time was fantasy author Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, just last year, with about $15 million. If you think about it, that's actually close to 10% of all the RPG big title Kickstarter earnings of the last 11 years. But remember, that just happened last year. Therefore, time will have to tell if this is a game that people continue to support and actually play. Next, a bit harder to dispute its popularity, Powered by the Apocalypse, number 2 in earnings, ranking 6 years out of 11, and having the second highest earning single RPG Kickstarter of all time, Avatar RPG. However, like we just suggested for Cosmere, I don't ever really see or hear much discussion about the Avatar RPG. Now, I also don't play very much PBTA at all, so maybe I'm just in my D20 fantasy bubble, but if we take away that $9 million tied to an extremely popular intellectual property, suddenly this game system's popularity does look very different. Then, number 3 in earnings goes to System Neutral. Ranking 9 out of 11 years, it's just cool to see system-neutral materials being so popular, because it kind of represents the individual gamer's interest in multiple systems, rather than that person playing only one game. So hopefully, this continues to grow over time. Next, Free League's Year Zero system, $8 million, 9 years ranked, and remember, this system includes games like the Forbidden Lands, the Alien RPG, Tales from the Loop, Vaesen, off the top of my head, I think Blade Runner as well, and more. So by Free League's sheer force of will to bend so many different settings and genres around this system, they made it one of the most popular. But it's cool, because it means if you know one Free League game, you kind of know them all. Except, in my case, the one Free League game I know best is the One Ring, and it doesn't use the Year Zero system apparently. But also, about $8 million and 9 years ranked, Cypher system. Good job. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this one. I played it one time, and if you do want to hear my breakdowns and opinions of all 30-ish RPGs I've played, I'll link that video at the end. But next, Draw Steel. And again, this Kickstarter kind of only just happened, so we will have to see if it really hangs on. But I personally have a lot of faith in this game. It's almost funny. They spent like a year, I think, just figuring out the core role. So this game is being thoroughly play tested, not to mention MCDM having a fantastic reputation for quality and a passionate community. Godspeed. And rounding out our top 10, we got Savage Worlds, DCC, Pathfinder, and Worlds of Darkness. Frankly, it's very cool to me that 2 of these games, Savage Worlds and World of Darkness, are totally foreign to me. Like, it is cool that there are so many popular games that even in this top 10, I haven't gotten around to trying them, even though I've played over 30 different RPGs. I mean, maybe one day we'll see Skate Wizards up here too. And outside of the top 10, like beyond this point, I think it is fair to say that these remaining 180 or so RPGs are not exactly competing for that number 2 spot behind D&D. Reality check, all of these combined are really the number 2 spot behind D&D, but many of these games have their own passionate communities and definitely have potential to crack into that top 10 in the coming years. For example, The One Ring. Because it's freaking Lord of the Rings and it's made really well. Discworld, similar to Cosmere, this could have a huge audience behind it. Mothership, this relatively new game, seems to have an amazing community of third-party publishers already, and it's kind of the king of sci-fi horror as far as I know. Old School Essentials. Everybody says it's AD&D, but legible and playable, so it's pretty much the core of the OSR. Then DC-20 and Tales of the Valiant. I think either of these could be the next Pathfinder, DCC, or something more over time, because they're D&D, but with their own fun twists. And likewise, even though it's a little further down the list right now, there is another D&D-like that is rapidly climbing in third-party support, and just had its second official Kickstarter in 2025, but it exceeded its core rulebook's Kickstarter in a mere 24 hours. Shadowdark. It is so easy to get into and so easy to design for. It's just definitely going places. But based on all this data, if I had to choose a second most popular RPG, I'd probably just give it to the Pathfinder fans so they'll give this video a thumbs up and leave me alone. Now, check out this first money video or the one on all the RPGs I've played. Thanks again to our sponsor and the amazing Bob World Builder patrons who really make all this possible and get some bonus content for being so amazing. Consider joining them through the links below and keep building.